With the 2020 NBA season coming to a close, there is no more basketball to be played until next year, so we now have all the context we need to appropriately rank players and stack them up against each other. This is always a fun exercise to do that pretty much every fan of the game takes part in, and naturally, everyone tends to have their own thoughts on matters like this, so I figured that I'd throw my thoughts into the mix and put out the way that I would rank the top 10 players at each position in the league. I will be putting out a video for every position, and last video I did the point guards, so today we'll be moving on to the shooting guards. Before we start though, it turns out about 82% of you that watch the videos aren't even subscribed, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as it not only helps the channel out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Before we get into the top 10, I want to discuss some honorable mentions that just missed the cut, with the 3 players in this category being Victor Oladipo, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Zach LaVine. Oladipo finds himself on the outside looking in after emerging as what looked like someone worthy of being placed top 5 2 years ago, because since that breakout season, injuries have really held him back, and in the time he's spent on the court since then, he just hasn't been able to regain that elite form, and unfortunately, one great season 2 years ago isn't enough to warrant placing him ahead of some of the names on this list. With Gilgeous-Alexander, he falls into a category that I'll be discussing a bunch throughout this series, where he absolutely has the talent to break into the top 10 very soon, but there's a lot of talent at the shooting guard position, and ahead of him are much more experienced, proven, and productive guys, and I need to see more from SGA before I put him above them. Then, with Zach LaVine, he has the offensive production, but his worrisome defense, combined with the fact that he has yet to impact a winning basketball team, holds him back just slightly of a top 10 nod. Now to get into the list, starting at number 10 and working our way up to the top spot, we have CJ McCollum of the Portland Trail Blazers. McCollum has played a reliable role as Damian Lillard's sidekick for several years now, and he gives the team a productive secondary playmaker that helps take some of the burden off of Lillard's shoulders when it comes to shot creation, and he can catch fire in a moment's notice as well. He beautifully utilizes the mid-range pull-up game and works well taking defenders off the dribble, as well as spotting up on the perimeter. He's not the best defender though, which has led to perimeter defensive issues plaguing the Blazers throughout the year, but all in all, he's a very good player with a skill set every team wants at the shooting guard position. Next up at number 9, we have Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. Brown's coming off of his best season as a pro, putting up a highly efficient 20 points per game, shooting 48% from the field and 38% from 3, and his growth in this regard has been huge for the Celtics moving forward. Jaylen embraces whatever role the Celtics need him to play, he's a very good defensive player as well, and he brings a necessary versatility to the Celtics lineup. Tatum's the clear number 1 option on the team, but Brown's importance to the Celtics cannot be understated, and moving forward, the two of them will make a very strong pair to build around. Up next at number 8, we have Jrue Holiday of the New Orleans Pelicans. Holiday is one of the most underrated players in the entire NBA, and it's been this way for years now. Back when he was playing alongside Anthony Davis, he never got nearly enough credit for what he brought to the team, and now on a team surrounded by youth, he has seemingly fallen into the background. Holiday is one of the best two-way players at the position, establishing himself as a phenomenal on-ball defender that causes havoc on that end, while also providing excellent shot creation and playmaking by putting up almost 20 points per game and 7 assists per game. A ton of NBA players have been very vocal about how underrated Jrue Holiday is, because when they compete against him, they know exactly how good he can be. So for me, putting him on this list at this spot was an easy decision. Next up at number 7, we have Paul George of the Los Angeles Clippers. There's arguably no player that experienced a bigger tarnish to their reputation than George this year, because the way that his season went down and ultimately ended was just brutal. George, prior to this season, was viewed as a fringe superstar with elite two-way production, but this season with the Clippers was way too inconsistent to put him in that category anymore. He stunk it up throughout several playoff games, including the series-clinching Game 7 against the Nuggets, and because of that, he's dropped quite a bit on this list. However, finding the right spot for him was tough because I didn't want to overreact too hard, but I also realized he did need to fall a few spots, so this felt like a good place for him, with other rising stars coming off of much better performances ranking ahead of him. Up next at number 6, we have Donovan Mitchell of the Utah Jazz. Mitchell got named to his first All-Star game this season, and he continued with his steady and reliable scoring production for the Jazz as their go-to guy. They did bring in players like Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic to help ease the load he was carrying for them, but Conley had a pretty inconsistent year, and Bogdanovic was out for the playoffs, so he once again found himself back in that very big role. In the first round of the playoffs, he exploded for 2 games of over 50 points and one more game over 40 points, but after the series started so strong for the team, it ended on a sour note where they choked away a 3-1 series lead and Mitchell missed the winning shot at the buzzer. Despite that though, Mitchell's future is very bright and should continue to rise up this list over time. Now, to start off the top 5, we have Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns, who are carrying some insane momentum going into next season. The Suns had a very minimal chance to make the playoffs, but in the bubble they fought tooth and nail for a shot at it, and as a result, they went undefeated, and Booker was the one leading the way. Booker really impressed me in this stretch and showed me that he could lead a team to wins when it mattered, but unfortunately their efforts proved to be meaningless as they just barely missed out at a shot at the playoff play-in game. Next year, I think we'll be seeing Booker have the best season of his career. I think the Suns will be a team on the rise, and I'm very excited to monitor the situation as it goes. Next up at number 4, we have Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors. Klay missed the entire year because of the injury he suffered in the finals last season, but that doesn't mean we can just forget about him on a list like this. While he may not return to his full form immediately at the start of next season, he does still rank as one of the best players at the position that has played incredibly important roles on championship teams for 5 years. He's one of the best shooters in the whole league who can heat up faster than anybody, he's a very good perimeter defender, and he's the perfect complement to Steph Curry in their hunt for more championships in the future. Up next at number 3, we have Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. Beal's season was another that flew way under the radar because of the team he plays on and the situation they have found themselves in, but there's no denying that he's emerged as one of the best players at the position. Talent-wise, especially with all of the injuries this team has endured throughout the year, the players Beal was playing with were arguably the worst supporting cast in the league, yet before the league shut down in March, he had them in 9th place in the East with a small chance at making the playoffs. He was the second leading scorer in the NBA this year, putting up 30.5 points per game. His playmaking has also come a long way for him to be putting up 6 assists per game, and when John Wall comes back next season, the two of them will hope to get the Wizards back on track in the playoffs. Next up at number 2, we have the man who proved everybody wrong this season, Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat. Jimmy's reputation as a locker room issue over the last few years has proven to be a wild misconception, because now that he's found a home in Miami alongside players equally as hungry for success, he looks brilliant. He led the Heat all the way to the finals after most pegged them as a first-round exit at best before the season started, and he showed that he can take over a game and uplift those around him when they buy in. Obviously, several of his teammates also stepped up in a huge way throughout the playoff run, so it wasn't all Jimmy doing everything, but a lot of the success is due to Jimmy and his presence, so he deservingly shot up this ranking. And finally, the number 1 spot for shooting guards goes to the guy who has been here for a while now, being James Harden. He's the best scorer in the game right now, having taken home yet another scoring title averaging 34 points per game. He was an MVP finalist yet again, and his production seems to always just be insane. Despite common narrative, he does show up in the playoffs consistently and continues to produce at a high level. The Rockets just got outmatched by the Lakers this year, who are now the champions. This was the easiest selection on the list, and we'll leave it at that. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below how you would rank the players at this position. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.